Betrayal was something that Michael Corinthos felt he had experienced. He had experienced a great deal of suffering as a result of both Drew, the person he regarded as a reliable guide, and Willow, the lady he believed he could depend on at all times. He had made a significant amount of personal sacrifices in order to protect his family and to take care of the individuals who were important to him. Nevertheless, at this particular time, it seemed as though everything was falling apart around him, and Michael was unsure of how to handle the situation. Each and every day, he was burdened by feelings of dissatisfaction and wrath, and he could feel them eating away at his mental well-being. He was unable to escape the weight of these feelings. The fact that he had the impression that the entire world was working against him led him to the conclusion that he wanted to strike back. It is not simple. However, Michael was not only angry at the situation, he was experiencing discomfort. She was someone he thought of as his rock, someone he could confide in, and someone he believed he could trust completely. Willow was someone he considered to be his rock. He was under the assumption that they shared a special connection, one that could not be severed under any circumstances. When he found out about it, the news that she was beginning to develop a closer relationship with Drew was like having a knife plunged into his heart. It was not only the fact that they were spending time together, it was also the manner in which they looked at each other, the laughter that they shared, and the glances that they passed back and forth with one another. It drove him utterly nuts that Michael was aware of anything was going on between them. He was aware of everything that was going on. In the past, it is probable that Michael would have made the decision to take a step back, cool down, and make an effort to approach the situation in a manner that is reasonable. On the other hand, he was drastically different this time around. At this time, he felt as though two of the people he trusted the most had betrayed him in some way. The generally calm and understanding demeanor that he possessed was replaced by a darker, even vindictive side that he was utterly ignorant he possessed to begin with. He was astonished by this change. He was determined to do whatever it took to make them pay for the hurt that they had caused him, and he wanted them to go through the same kind of suffering that they had caused him. When it was late in the night, Michael was sitting in his room by himself, ruminating on his experiences. He was unable to stop thinking about Drew and Willow and their relationship whenever he thought about them together. He believed that even if he was no longer a part of it, they would continue to joke around with one another, confide in one another, and form a bond with one another. Suddenly, he was overcome with rage, and he clenched his fists in response to the sensation. It was very evident to him that he could not merely let them getting away with what they had done. He aspired to do something so daring that others would feel the difference in order to make a statement, and he sought to accomplish this by. Immediately after that, he had a stunning realization, which was a radical concept that was nearly impossible to reject. Beginning from that moment forward, Michael had found a video of Drew and Willow. This tape had been discovered a few days ago. In spite of the fact that he was unsure of how it had come into his possession, it was obvious enough to exhibit to them when they were in close proximity to him. They had no idea that anyone was observing them, and for that brief minute, it seemed as though they were enjoying happiness. Possibly even a very small amount of happiness. In spite of the fact that the video did not contain a lot of personal information, it did give the sensation of a connection, which was something more profound that Michael was difficult to ignore. Even as he continued to watch the video, there was a part of him that was uncomfortable with the idea. This was in no way typical of who he was. Over the course of his life, he had always made an attempt to rise above vengeance as part of his quest to become a better person. However, at this point, the animosity was so strong that it caused him to lose his vision, and he had finished being the decent guy. As a result of the grief that they had caused him, he was resolute in his determination to make sure that they would never forget it. After making a few clicks, Michael began arrangements to post the film on the internet, well aware of the damage that it would cause. He did this after making this decision. One day later, the video was uploaded to the internet and shared. People from all across Port Charles became aware of it in a matter of hours, as it just took a few hours for it to spread over social media platforms. It would be very close to being possible for Michael to feel the effects of the ripples. It was everything that he imagined Drew and Willow would feel, including the shock, the humiliation, and the pain that they would experience. He was optimistic that they would, on some level, be able to comprehend the measures that they had taken against him. Michael, on the other hand, did not feel a sense of fulfillment, but rather a peculiar emptiness that they were experiencing. The retribution that he had been looking for did not end up being as satisfying as he had expected it would be. Willow was the first person to watch the footage, and her reaction on seeing it was one of complete and utter terror. She was unable to comprehend the reality that someone had compromised her privacy to such a significant degree. It did not take her very long to realize that Michael was the one responsible for the crime. For some time now, he had been behaving in a strange manner, becoming more reclusive and irritated, and now, with the assistance of this film, she could almost see the pieces of the puzzle falling together. She was aware that Michael was in pain, but she never anticipated that he would go to such great efforts to alleviate his suffering at that time. He was challenged by Willow, who was both enraged and horrified by the situation. "It is a mystery to me, Michael, how you were able to achieve this. What could possibly be the reason for you to betray me in such a way?" Despite the fact that his expression was unreadable, Michael avoided staring at her. "Are you going to betray me? What are your thoughts on the actions that you and Drew took toward me? When I found out that both of you had betrayed my trust, I was taken aback by the incident." The voice of Willow was completely broken. "It was a friendship between Drew and I, Michael. It wasn't what you anticipated to be," I said before the conversation. "I did not intend to do you any harm by having feelings for him, but I did have feelings for him." Despite the fact that Michael was crossing his arms, it was exceedingly difficult to contain his anger. "There is no significance to it at all. You both have been the source of my suffering. When I was with both of you, I had the impression that I was nothing at all." When Drew entered the room, he appeared to be equally shocked and angry at the same time. This occurred precisely at that moment. In addition to this, he had watched the video and was familiar with the individual who was responsible for publishing it. "Michael, I seemed to get the idea that we were linked to each other. That we were able to rely on one another was something that I perceived." He laughed it off with a smile. "Household. Because of what you did, it is impossible for you to discuss your family in any sense of the word." It seemed as if Drew's cranium had been rattled. "Michael, we did not engage in any behavior that may have made you feel any kind of pain. You have allowed your sentiments of envy to take control of you, and as a consequence, you have performed an act that you are unable to remove from your memory." At that very moment, Michael had a tiny pang of remorse. However, he quickly pushed it out of his mind and continued on with his day. It was impossible for him to make a display of weakness at this moment. Given that he had decided to act in a manner that was consistent with his beliefs, there was no going back at this point. Over the course of several days, the consequences of Michael's actions became increasingly prevalent across the entirety of the city of Port Charles. Michael started to feel the weight of the consequences of his actions when he caused Willow and Drew's lives to be turned upside down as a result of his actions. He was under the impression that receiving payback would make him feel better, but instead, it left him with a feeling of emptiness on the inside. People in his family and circle of acquaintances viewed him differently now, and he was unable to shake the feeling that he had crossed a line that he would never be able to reverse. He was unable to avoid the impression that things had changed. After some time had passed, Carly took him aside, and her facial expression conveyed her discontent with the particular circumstance. "Michael, I brought you up to be far superior to this," she stated in response. "Your anger has been the driving force behind your actions, and as a consequence, you have caused hurt to the people who love you." Michael lowered his head, the pain caused by her words still fresh in his thoughts, but he did it nevertheless. It became very evident to him that he had lost something of great significance, specifically his own sense of morality. After allowing his anger to cloud his judgment, he was now left to pick up the pieces of his own damaged relationships. He let his wrath to cloud his judgment. However, he allowed his anger to cloud his judgment. A terrifying ordeal was finally something that Michael was compelled to go through. It was impossible for even vengeance to heal his wounds. The only thing that it accomplished was make the wounds worse, and he would have to continue to suffer from them for a very long time. He had no idea whether Drew and Willow would ever forgive him, and he couldn't blame them if they did not forgive him. He was unclear about whether or not they would accept his forgiveness. In the moment that Michael was standing by himself and observing the results of his actions, he was conscious of the fact that he had made a mistake that would have catastrophic effects. Admirers have expressed their displeasure over what they considered to be a betrayal of a much-loved actress, and the sudden dismissal of Kelly Monaco from General Hospital has caused a commotion among those admirers. After more than 20 years of portraying the part of Sam McCall, Kelly had established herself as a favorite among the audience. Fans were left in a state of shock as a result of her sudden departure, particularly due to the manner in which the show's producer handled the situation, with many of them referring to the producer as vindictive and alleging that they are out of touch with the crowd's commitment to the actress. Many of the audience members went to social media in order to express their unhappiness with the production. Throughout the course of General Hospital, Kelly's portrayal of the character Sam made a significant contribution. The personality she possessed was one that was powerful and independent, and she never shied away from speaking up for herself and the people who were important to her. She built a one-of-a-kind relationship with a vast number of other characters, and her narratives piqued the interest of her audience. Due to the fact that the audience believed that her relationships and her travel were crucial components of the play, the fact that she was fired without being given a suitable farewell appeared to be a betrayal to its members. The way in which the producer of the show handled the termination of the show was the most significant factor that made the issue significantly more challenging for the viewers. According to individuals who are familiar with the issue, the producer did not even mention Kelly by name during a recent press event when responding to a question regarding the change in casting. This information comes from those who are aware of the situation. In her speech, she made a passing allusion to Sam, the role that Kelly plays, but she refrained from directly addressing Kelly's name. Instead, she referred to it as a casting adjustment, rather than acknowledging the actor who had brought the role and her story to life. The manner in which she left was cold and unapproachable, and as a consequence, many felt much more humiliated than they had before. The irritation reached a boiling point on social media, as fans expressed their dissatisfaction of the producer's apparent attitude of disdain toward Kelly. Fans vented their frustration with the producer's behavior. A fan said on Twitter, "After nearly 2 decades, she deserves more than a casting adjustment announcement," referring to the actress's current role. She really deserves more than that. She stated, "Sam McCall is Kelly Monaco," she remarked. This indicates how little regard they have for either the actors or the supporter base, as evidenced by the fact that the producer is unable to even speak her name. An additional supporter said that this producer does not comprehend the legacy that actors such as Kelly bring to the show. This statement was made in response to remarks made by another supporter. There is nothing more than a vindictive and out-of-touch attitude behind it. Kelly Monaco was regarded by a great number of individuals as being more than just another member of the cast. During the duration of her tenure on General Hospital, she exemplified a certain age, one in which soap operas flourished and loyal viewers came in on a regular basis to watch their favorite characters evolve. She was a symbol of that era. The way in which Kelly brought Sam to life was something that very few other people were able to accomplish. Sam was a character who possessed both strengths and shortcomings, and she had a side that was highly sympathetic to the audience that existed. The method in which her dismissal was handled, in addition to the fact that it was handled, provided the sense that that past had been erased. The audience had the feeling that the producer was taking the implication that Kelly's contribution to the show was meaningless, that her years of hard work and dedication were not worth it, and that her effort was something that was thrown away. Not only did the manner in which the producer handled Kelly's departure have an impact on the audience, but it also communicated with the other members of the ensemble. Having witnessed Kelly's departure in such a dramatic manner, many viewers were concerned about the morale on set. They wondered how other performers who had been with the program for a significant amount of time felt about the situation. It raised concerns about whether or not anyone's position was assured, regardless matter how much they were loved or how important they were to the course of events. This was relevant since it brought up questions about whether or not. Someone who was concerned about Kelly asked the question if they can do this to Kelly, who follows in their footsteps on social media. Because they have put in so much effort to make this show what it is, each and every member of the cast and crew deserves to be treated with such disrespect during the production of this performance. The criticism continued to be issued even outside of the sphere of social media. Fans have submitted open letters to the producer of the soap opera, urging that they publicly acknowledge Kelly's contributions to the production. These letters have been sent to this producer. There have been a significant number of these letters published on websites and blogs that are dedicated to fans. In order to demonstrate their sympathy, supporters organized online campaigns and came together under hashtags such as #JusticeForKelly and #RespectSamCall. It was abundantly clear that the audience would not take this disrespect lying down. They wanted the network and the producers to be aware of how profoundly they felt Kelly's absence and how much they appreciated the job that she had done. They wanted the network to know that they would not take this disrespect lying down. It was claimed that the decision to fire the employee was more of a personal one than a professional one, according to certain individuals who were aware of the issue. There were other fans who speculated that Kelly's firing was a form of retaliation rather than a necessary shift in the cast. There were speculations that Kelly had a history of disagreement with some producers, and there were even rumors that she had been suspended from her position. Both of these rumors were circulating. Regardless of whether or not these tales were true, the idea that the termination was carried out through vengeance continued to spread across the community. There were some fans who wanted to get a comment from the showrunner, and they asked for the showrunner to be open and honest about the reasons behind Kelly's sudden departure from the program. The following statement was made by a person who is a fan of Kelly. "We deserve to know why Kelly was treated at this level. This isn't just about a change in casting. It feels like it's a personal matter. The decision was made by Kelly Monaco to refrain from making any public statements regarding her departure, and she remained silent throughout the entire process. In a natural way, this only helped to heighten the fury that the fans were already feeling, with many of them speculating that she might have been asked to stop from commenting about her leaving. Her followers had high hopes that she would break her quiet and give them a feeling of closure. Yet, they also understood her decision to stay out of the drama, because they were aware that she could want to go with her dignity intact. Fans had high hopes that she would break her silence and offer them with a sense of closure. Both the fact that Kelly did not address the situation and the fact that the producer remained silent just served to make the fans feel even more as though they had been treated unfairly. People who watch General Hospital are determined in their intention to carry on with their fight, despite the fact that the drama show has not responded to their demands. They have strong hopes that their voices will result in a change in the culture and management of the program, which will ultimately lead to a greater respect for performers who commit their entire life to portraying these parts. They have high hopes regarding this outcome. A significant number of viewers consider General Hospital to be more than just a television program. It is an essential component of their lives, and the actors who bring these characters to life are like members of their own family to them. Having the experience of seeing one of their family members being treated with what appears to be contempt elicits significant feelings and a strong resolve to defend the rights of other people whom they hold dear. A compelling reminder of the connection that exists between soap opera artists and their audiences is the backlash that happened as a result of Kelly Monaco's firing. This response serves as a powerful reminder of the connection that exists between performers and their audiences. Fans should have the idea that their dedication and allegiance to a show is recognized, and they should also anticipate that the same degree of respect will be shown to the actors. It is essential for fans to have this impression. It is possible that the manner in which Kelly's departure was handled has left a sour taste in the mouths of many viewers. But it has also galvanized the General Hospital audience, demonstrating to the producers that fans will speak up when they believe that something or someone has been discriminated against. The future is a time that has not yet been determined. Many viewers are wondering about whether or if the producers will eventually respond to the criticism, provide an apology, or at the very least acknowledge Kelly's legacy on the show. They are curious about whether or not they will do any of these things. Nevertheless, there is one thing that is quite clear. The fans of Kelly Monaco are not going to let her go without putting up a fight. Their voices have been heard, and they have demanded respect for the actors who are responsible for making General Hospital a remarkable show. This is the case regardless of whether or not the producers chose to listen to them. For the time being, fans will continue to pay tribute to Kelly Monaco and the unforgettable portrayal of Sam McCall that she achieved. Regardless of the choices that are made behind the scenes, this will guarantee that her influence will never be dismissed as irrelevant. Each and every person who was close to Sasha Gilmore was aware of the fact that her life had taken a turn for the worst in a terrible direction. In addition to being unable to maintain her composure, she was a total and utter failure. Sasha plunged into a world of hurt as a result of the tragic circumstances surrounding the death of her baby. She was looking for a means to escape the pain that she was experiencing. The people who were close to her and were concerned about her well-being, on the other hand, were worried that her sadness was enveloping her. It seemed as though she was becoming increasingly dizzy when she made an effort to numb herself to the level that she did. Among the people who had been keeping a close eye on her, it appeared that Jason Morgan was one of them. Despite the fact that Jason often presented himself in a gloomy manner, he had a soft spot for those who were going through terrible times, especially when they had a good heart. He had seen the amount of Sasha's pain and seen how her troubles were getting more serious with each passing day. He had had the opportunity to witness both of these things. There was a time when she was a person who was full of optimism and light, but it seemed as though her light was beginning to dim. To add insult to injury, Jason could not merely stand by and watch everything happen without taking any action. On a certain occasion, Carly Corinthos called him and conveyed her want to speak with him. She was obviously in a state of terror. "Jason, you will need to provide assistance to Sasha. I have a strong suspicion that she is up to no good. It has been brought to my attention that she has been seen interacting with a number of possibly dangerous persons who are attempting to get her hands on narcotics once more. It is impossible for me to predict what will occur to her in the event that she does not obtain aid as quickly as possible." The look on Jason's face suddenly went gloomy. Sasha had been struggling with her addiction in private, and despite the fact that a large number of people were attempting to help her, she found it difficult to accept the reality that she would be receiving support. On the other hand, the fact that she was now involved with dealers was a clear indication that the situation was significantly more challenging than he had previously believed it to be. The very last thing he desired was for her to sustain an injury or make a mistake from which she would never be able to recover. In order to get out of this sticky situation as quickly as possible, Sasha needed the assistance of a person who could save her face. Additionally, Jason was well aware of the most appropriate spot to start. An abandoned facility on the outskirts of Port Charles was the place that Jason located the following night. This was the area that was the most feasible for Sasha to be in at the time. It had a reputation for being a site where dealers conducted business, and it was located in a location that was concealed from inquisitive eyes. He had a strong hunch that Sasha might engage in risky activity on that particular evening, despite the fact that he was unsure whether or not she would be present. He found it difficult to believe that she would not be present. When he came on his motorcycle in the middle of the night, there was utter silence. The only sounds that could be heard were those of the city that was located in the distance. In preparation for the upcoming test, Jason took a deep breath and girded himself. With regard to the matter of safeguarding Sasha's safety, he was ready to take any action that was necessary in order to get her out of that place. He approached the building in a stealthy manner, and then he entered the building from a side entrance. Without making any noise, he accomplished this task. The inside was filled with the sounds of people that were mumbling, despite the fact that the illumination was low. Jason moved gingerly in an effort to shield himself from the possibility of bringing attention to himself. Before he finally located her, he searched the surrounding area, his eyes searching the darkness till he spotted her. She was eventually located. Sasha was standing in the adjacent corner, and she gave off the impression of being worn out and emaciated. She gripped to her purse as if it were the only thing that could save her life, and her eyes remained completely expressionless for the entire moment. She gave off an apprehensive image by darting her eyes around as if she was hesitant about whether or not she could trust the people around her. Her eyes were darting around while she appeared anxious. Jason approached her with greater caution than he normally would have because he did not want to upset her. "Sasha," he hushed back to her the second time. She turned around as soon as she became aware of him, and her eyes expanded in rapid succession. "Is Jason a person? Please tell me what you are doing in this location." It was with a tone that was controlled yet forceful that he said, "I could ask you the same thing. There is no requirement for you to be present at this time, Sasha. This in no way represents you." Therefore, in order to avoid being seen by him, she lowered her gaze. "Jason, I do not require anything to be done to save me. I am keeping up fine. I have the ability to manage this situation on my own. It seemed as if Jason's cranium had been rocked. It is not necessary for you to go through this problem by yourself. I am aware of the discomfort that you are experiencing. However, this is not the method that will help ease the discomfort that you are experiencing. The expression on Sasha's face was a unique combination of anger and melancholy as she turned her attention to him. To what extent are you aware of the pain that I am experiencing? Losing a child is like losing everything else in your life. It is impossible for you to comprehend what it is like to go through that. The expression on Jason's face became more relaxed. In spite of the fact that it was obvious to him that there was no way to ease her suffering via the use of words, he was also conscious of the fact that going down this path would only continue to cause her more suffering. Sasha, you are so right in every single respect. My understanding of what you are going through is limited, but I am unable to fully comprehend it. Despite the fact that you do not deserve to damage yourself any further, I am aware that you do. You have the capacity to triumph over this obstacle. Before Sasha had the opportunity to respond, one of the males in the neighborhood took note of Jason and went forward from where they were standing. The way in which Jason communicated with her was not to his liking, and it was clear that he had some reservations about him. The man turned his arms over his chest and asked, "Who are you?" while folding his arms. Jason's eyes took on a chilly kind of expression, absolutely nothing more than someone keeping an eye out for her. It was a man who was sneering. The protection of her safety is not something that anyone should be concerned about. It would be best if you just left. In spite of this, Jason had no intention of retreating. We will be traveling together in the future. Despite the fact that the atmosphere in the room was becoming increasingly tense, Jason was anxious that a fight could break out at any moment. As he quickly moved his focus to Sasha, his voice was urgent and he called out to her. "Sasha, you have to move to the next step. Let's leave this place if we want to prevent the situation from growing any more dire." During the time that Sasha was debating, her eyes raced back and forth between Jason and the man, who was becoming more and more furious with each passing second. Even though she was afraid and confused, she was conscious that Jason was right. This was despite the fact that she was terrified. This was not a place that she desired to be in at any point in time. She had no desire to proceed along this dreary path, and the prospect of doing so was not something she preferred. Prior to her having the opportunity to rethink her choice, Jason extended his hand and took her hand in his. "I ask that you have faith in me, Sasha. That is why I am here to help you." After what seemed like an eternity, she eventually gave him a nod, her grip on his hand becoming more strong. At the same time that he was walking her in the direction of the exit, Jason kept his gaze set on the person who had threatened them. The other man took a step back as he realized that Jason was not someone to mess with. He saw that Jason was not someone to mess with. As they went outside, Sasha took a deep breath and felt the frigid night air against her skin. She had a cool sensation. It appeared that she was having a good time. When she looked at Jason, her eyes conveyed a mixture of gratitude and remorse. She felt both of these emotions simultaneously. A voice that was barely audible said, I'm sorry. It was not my aim to cause such a significant amount of distress to everyone. Because of all that was going on, I simply did not know how to deal with it." Jason gave her a look that was so calming that it comforted her. "Do not be concerned about it. The expectation that you will be perfect is not held by anyone. On the other hand, you do not have to go through this by yourself for the time being. Concerns have been raised about you and your health by other people. Our eagerness to be of support is expressed." During the time that Sasha was nodding her head, a tear was falling down her cheek. It had been a very long time since she had experienced any kind of optimism. But she now felt it for the very first time. Following Jason's decision to put his life in jeopardy in order to save her, she came to the realization that she could no longer continue to drive everyone away from her. She said the words, "Thank you, Jason," in a barely discernible whisper as she spoke them out of her mouth. "I am grateful that you have not given up on me." As he nodded, the smile that had been on Jason's face began to fade. "It would be my pleasure, Sasha. However, it is important to bear in mind that you do not have to go through this by yourself." During the time that Sasha and her companions were making their way out of the dark structure and back toward the lights of the city, she felt as though a weight had been taken off of her shoulders. In the presence of Jason and other individuals who cared about her, she felt certain that she would be able to initiate the process of regaining her footing, and that she would be able to do so with confidence. She was now ready to give it a chance for the very first time in a very long time, despite the fact that it would be one of the most challenging possibilities.